The cargo bay doors refused to open properly, and that was how Dr. Aria Blake knew something was wrong. She had checked 63 abandoned vessels in the asteroid belt over the past 2 years, and doors always opened when they were supposed to. When they didn't, it usually meant someone had sealed them from the inside. "Riley, bring the plasma torch," Aria said into her helmet radio. "We've got a manual override situation here." Captain Riley Hayes floated over from their small shuttle, toolkit maglocked to her suit. "Another smuggler cache? Please tell me it's not spice this time. I'm still filing reports from the last haul. Won't know until we get inside." Aria stepped back as Riley began cutting through the door seal. Sparks scattered in the airless void, dancing like tiny stars before fading into nothing. The cargo vessel had been drifting for at least 3 months, according to their scans. No power, no life signs, no distress beacon. Just another piece of space junk in the Meridian 7 sector. Except Aria's sensors had picked up something odd. A heat signature. Faint, but there. And heat meant life, or at least something worth investigating. The door gave way with a groan of metal. Riley pushed it aside, and both women activated their suit lights. The beams cut through the darkness, revealing a cargo hold filled with broken containers. Whatever had been stored here had been destroyed violently. Scorch marks covered the walls. "This wasn't an accident," Riley said, her hand moving to the weapon on her hip. "This was a fight." Aria moved deeper into the hold, scanning with her handheld device. The heat signature was stronger now, coming from the far corner behind a stack of collapsed storage units. She climbed over the debris carefully, aware that her suit could tear on the jagged metal edges. That's when she saw it. Curled among the wreckage was a creature no larger than a house cat. Its body was covered in crystalline scales that shimmered even in the artificial light. 2 small wings were folded against its back, membrane thin and translucent. As Aria's light touched it, the creature's scales began to glow with an inner light, soft blue and warm like a candle flame. "Riley, you need to see this." The security officer joined her, and both women stared at the small being. It lifted its head weakly, revealing eyes that held too much intelligence for something so young. The creature made a soft sound, almost like a purr mixed with wind chimes. "Is that a dragon?" Riley whispered. "Dragons are mythology," Aria replied, but even as she said it, she wasn't sure. The creature certainly looked like every ancient Earth drawing of dragons she had ever seen. Scaled body, wings, a long tail, and a distinctly reptilian head, but its crystalline nature was unlike anything in human records. Aria scanned it with her device. The readings made no sense. The creature's cellular structure was based on silicon rather than carbon. Its body temperature fluctuated in patterns that suggested it was generating energy internally, like a small reactor. And its DNA, if that's what the readings were showing, had sequences that matched nothing in any known database. "It's hurt," Riley said, pointing. There were cracks in some of the scales, and a thin, glowing fluid leaked from a wound on the creature's side. "And it's alone." Aria looked around the cargo hold more carefully. Behind the creature, she found the remains of several large eggs. They had been broken open from the outside, their shells scattered. The scorch marks made more sense now. Someone had attacked this ship specifically to destroy these eggs, but they had missed one. "We need to follow protocol," Aria said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Call it in. Let the xenobiology team handle it." "The xenobiology team is 3 weeks away," Riley countered. "And if someone attacked this ship to kill these creatures, they might come back to finish the job. Besides, look at it. It's dying." The small dragon-like creature had curled tighter, its glow dimming. It made that sound again, softer this time, and Aria felt something twist in her chest. She had studied alien life for 15 years. She had dissected, cataloged, and analyzed hundreds of species, but she had never felt this before, this immediate connection. "We take it back to the station," she decided, quietly. "No official reports until we know what we're dealing with." Riley nodded and carefully scooped up the creature. It didn't resist, instead pressing against the warmth of her suit. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Aria grabbed samples from the broken eggs and took detailed scans of the cargo hold. Evidence might be important later. Once aboard their shuttle, they created a makeshift containment area using a storage locker lined with thermal blankets. The creature settled into the warm space, its glow strengthening slightly. Aria administered basic first aid, using medical gel to seal the wound. The creature watched her with those intelligent eyes the entire time. "What do you think happened here?" Riley asked as they set course back to Meridian 7 station. A massacre, Arya replied simply. Someone knew these eggs were being transported. They stopped the ship and destroyed them all. The question is why? The creature made another soft sound and both women turned to look. It had stood up on shaky legs and pressed against the transparent door of its container, not trying to escape, but trying to be closer to them. I think it understands us, Riley said quietly. Arya wanted to say that was impossible. Understanding required language processing, cultural context, and cognitive development that took years to achieve. But the way the creature looked at them suggested otherwise. As their shuttle approached Meridian 7, Arya made a decision that would change everything. She encrypted her logs, locked down her findings, and prepared to hide their discovery from station authorities. Breaking protocol was a serious offense. She could lose her position, her research grants, everything she had worked for. But as the small crystalline dragon pressed its face against the container door, watching her with trust in its ancient eyes, Arya knew she would do whatever it took to protect it. She just didn't know yet that this small creature held secrets that would shake the foundations of human understanding, or that by saving it, she and Riley had just become the most important people in the galaxy. 3 weeks passed before anyone noticed the unusual power drain in Arya's laboratory. By then, the small crystalline creature had doubled in size and learned to respond to its name, Ember. Riley had chosen it during their second night together, when the creature's inner glow had brightened enough to light up the entire room. The name fit perfectly for something that seemed to burn with its own internal fire. You're eating again, Arya observed, watching Ember consume what appeared to be pure mineral compounds. The creature had refused standard food, but showed great interest in rocks, metals, and particularly anything containing rare earth elements. Its diet was expensive and difficult to explain to the station's supply officers. Ember chirped, a sound that had evolved from simple wind chimes into something more complex. Over the past weeks, the sounds had become patterns, rhythms, almost like speech, but operating on frequencies that human ears could barely process. Riley entered the lab carrying another unauthorized supply crate. I'm running out of excuses for requisitioning titanium. Someone's going to start asking questions. As if understanding, Ember's scales shifted color from blue to a concerned amber. The creature had started doing that recently, changing hues based on emotion or intent. Right now, amber meant worry. It's okay, Riley said softly, approaching Ember without fear. Over the weeks, the dragon had become comfortable with both women, often seeking physical contact and sleeping curled between them during rest periods. We'll figure something out. Ember stretched its wings, which now spanned nearly 2 meters when fully extended. The membrane had thickened, becoming less transparent but more durable. Arya had documented every change, filling encrypted files with data that she dared not share. Each day brought new discoveries. Ember's scales could refract light in ways that defied physics. Its body temperature could shift from freezing to scorching in seconds. And most remarkably, it seemed to understand not just words but concepts. The alert on Arya's console interrupted her thoughts. Visitors requesting docking clearance, the automated system announced. Ship designation Sovereignty Seeker. Origin Draconid space. Riley's expression hardened. Draconid? They're 2 sectors away from their normal territory. What do they want here? Arya pulled up the docking request. The message was formal, diplomatic, but the underlying demand was clear. They were searching for stolen property, specifically a biological specimen taken from one of their transport vessels. Ember's scales flashed bright red, and the creature released a sound they had never heard before. It was loud, resonant, and felt like it vibrated through their bones rather than their ears. Every piece of equipment in the lab flickered. Ember, calm down, Arya said, though her own heart was racing. How did they find out? They couldn't have, Riley replied, checking her weapon instinctively. We've been careful, unless... She paused, realization crossing her face. Unless they've been tracking ships in this sector. That cargo vessel we found was in Draconid space before it drifted here. Station Director Hammond's face appeared on the communication screen, looking irritated. Dr. Blake, Captain Hayes, report to my office immediately. We have guests who are very interested in speaking with you. The meeting room felt smaller with 3 Draconid representatives present. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, their own scales dark green and thick like armor. Unlike Ember's crystalline elegance, these beings were built for power and intimidation. Their eyes, yellow with vertical pupils, fixed on Arya and Riley with predatory focus. We are searching for stolen biological material, the lead Draconid said, its voice a deep rumble. 3 weeks ago, one of our research vessels was attacked in this sector. Valuable specimens were aboard. We have evidence suggesting human involvement. That's a serious accusation, Director Hammond replied. My people don't attack vessels, Draconid or otherwise. Perhaps not intentionally, another Draconid interjected. But salvage operations are common here. If your people found the vessel and took anything from it, we demand its immediate return. Arya kept her expression neutral, years of scientific discipline helping her hide the panic rising in her chest. What kind of specimens? That is not your concern, human. Simply tell us if you have encountered an abandoned vessel in grid section 749. Riley spoke before Arya could. We conduct salvage operations regularly. We'd need to check our logs. The lead Draconid stepped closer, its bulk casting a shadow over both women. Let me be clear. The specimen we seek is extremely dangerous. If you have found it, you are in great peril. It must be returned to our custody immediately for the safety of all. Dangerous how? Arya asked, unable to help herself. It is a remnant of an extinct species, the Draconid replied. They were called Primus drakes. Ancient, powerful, and destructive. We eliminated them for the good of the galaxy. If even one survives, it could bring catastrophe. Arya's mind raced. Primus drakes. The name meant nothing to human databases, but the way the Draconid spoke suggested a history of violence, and they claimed to have eliminated an entire species. That wasn't peacekeeping. That was genocide. We'll cooperate fully with your investigation, Director Hammond said diplomatically. But I'll need to see proper authorization before allowing unrestricted access to my station. The Draconid's eyes narrowed, but it nodded. We will return with proper documentation. But be warned, humans. Harboring a Primus Drake is considered an act of war against the sovereignty. The consequences would be severe. After the Draconid left, Director Hammond turned to Arya and Riley. Please tell me you don't have whatever they're looking for. We need to check our salvage logs, Riley said smoothly. It'll take some time. Make it fast. I don't want trouble with the Draconid sovereignty. They're not known for their patience. Back in the lab, Ember was agitated. The creature paced back and forth, scales flickering between red and deep purple. When Arya and Riley entered, it rushed to them, making urgent sounds. It's okay, Arya soothed, though it clearly wasn't. We're not going to let them take you. Ember pressed its head against Arya's hand, and suddenly the world shifted. Images flooded her mind. Not words, but memories. She saw eggs being tended by larger versions of Ember, beautiful crystalline dragons with wings that seemed to touch the stars. She saw ships arriving, weapons firing, and dragons falling from the sky. She saw hatred in yellow eyes, and she saw extinction. Arya gasped and pulled back, her head spinning. It just showed me its memories. Riley, the Draconid aren't looking for a dangerous creature. They're looking for a survivor. They want to finish what they started. Riley's jaw tightened. Then we don't let them find Ember. Simple as that. There's nothing simple about this, Arya replied. We're talking about defying a major galactic power. They could destroy this entire station. Ember made a soft sound and touched Riley's hand with its snout. The captain's eyes widened as the same flood of memories transferred to her. When she recovered, her expression had hardened into something determined. Then we don't stay on the station, Riley said. We run. Run where? They'll track us anywhere in human space. Then we go somewhere else. Riley pulled up a star chart. Ember led us to that cargo ship for a reason. Maybe it can lead us somewhere safe. As if in agreement, Ember's scales brightened to a hopeful green. The creature moved to the star chart and touched it with one claw. The display flickered and a new location appeared. Coordinates to an uncharted region in the Veil Nebula. That's 2 weeks away at maximum speed, Arya said, and completely unexplored. It's also where the Draconid will never think to look, Riley countered. Arya, we both saw what they did. We can't hand Ember over to them. Arya looked at the small dragon who watched her with those intelligent, trusting eyes. She thought about her career, her research, her comfortable life on Meridian 7. Then she thought about what the Draconid had done to Ember's family, and what they would do if they found the last survivor. We'll need a ship, she said finally, and supplies. And a very good cover story. Riley grinned. Leave that to me. I know a few pilots who owe me favors. We can be gone before the Draconid return with their authorization. As they began planning their escape, Ember curled between them, scales glowing warmly. The small dragon didn't know it yet, but it had just found something its species had thought lost forever. Allies willing to stand against impossible odds, simply because it was the right thing to do. The stolen supply ship shuddered as it entered the Veil Nebula, its sensors struggling to penetrate the dense clouds of ionized gas. Arya gripped her seat, watching the navigation displays flicker with interference. Behind her, Ember had grown, large enough to require its own harness, wings folded carefully to fit in the cramped cargo area. "This wasn't my best idea," Riley admitted, piloting them deeper into the purple and blue swirls of the nebula. "Visibility is almost zero." "Ember, are you sure about this?" Arya asked, turning to look at their companion. The dragon's response was to press one crystalline claw against her temple. The memory transfer had become their primary method of communication, though Arya still wasn't used to the sensation. Images filled her mind again, but this time they were clearer, more purposeful. She saw a planet hidden in the nebula's heart, shielded by electromagnetic interference that made it invisible to conventional scanners. "There's a planet ahead," Arya relayed to Riley. "Ember's people used the nebula as camouflage. The interference is natural shielding." "Great. Now we just need to not crash into it." Riley adjusted their trajectory based on Arya's descriptions, trusting the images Ember provided. It took 6 hours of careful navigation before they broke through the densest part of the nebula. The planet appeared suddenly, small and rocky with minimal atmosphere. Not naturally habitable, but definitely occupied. Structures dotted the surface, elegant buildings that seemed grown rather than built, their architecture matching Ember's crystalline nature. "Is anyone down there?" Riley asked. Ember's scales shifted to a deep blue. The color they had learned meant sadness. The dragon shared another memory, this one of evacuation. Dragons fleeing, carrying eggs, scattering to the stars in hopes that some might survive. This planet was an ancient refuge, but it had been abandoned during the Draconid genocide. "It's empty," Arya said quietly. "They left 500 years ago, but Ember thinks there might be information stored here. Records of what happened." They landed near the largest structure, a building that spiraled upward like a frozen tornado of crystal. As they disembarked, Ember moved ahead confidently, clearly recognizing the place despite never having been there before. Genetic memory, Arya realized. The knowledge passed down through generations. Inside, the building was pristine, no dust, no decay. The crystalline construction seemed immune to time. Ember led them to a central chamber where a massive structure pulsed with faint light. It looked like a tree made of living data, branches spreading into fractal patterns that hurt to look at too long. "What is this?" Riley asked, her voice echoing in the vast space. Ember touched the structure and it blazed to life. Suddenly, the chamber filled with holographic images, dragons soaring through space without ships, dragons communing with massive technological artifacts that dwarfed planets, dragons mediating disputes between species whose names meant nothing to human databases. They were peacekeepers, Arya breathed, watching the historical record unfold. The Primus Drakes maintained balance in the galaxy. They prevented wars, negotiated treaties, and guarded ancient technology. The images shifted, showing the Draconid sovereignty in its early days. A young species, aggressive and expansionist. The Primus Drakes had tried to contain them, to teach them cooperation instead of conquest. But the Draconid resented being controlled. They saw the dragons as obstacles to their destiny. Then came the betrayal. The Draconid had pretended to seek peace while secretly developing weapons specifically designed to kill Primus Drakes. When they struck, it was sudden and coordinated. Across 100 worlds, dragons died. The few survivors fled, taking their eggs, hoping to preserve their species in secret. Genocide, Riley said flatly. And the galaxy just let it happen? The galaxy didn't know, Arya replied, studying the data. The Draconid covered it up. They claimed the Primus Drakes had attacked first, that they were defending themselves. By the time the truth could be revealed, All the witnesses were dead. Ember made a sound of grief, and both women felt the weight of 5 centuries of loss. The dragon approached another section of the archive and touched it. New information flooded forward, and Arya's eyes widened. Riley, you need to see this. The Primus Drakes weren't just peacekeepers. They could metabolize dark matter. What does that mean? It means they could interact with exotic matter that normal beings can't touch. Dark matter makes up most of the universe, but we can barely detect it, let alone use it. But the Primus Drakes could process it naturally. It made them living keys. The archive showed ancient installations scattered throughout the galaxy, massive structures built by a civilization that had existed before the Primus Drakes, before the Draconid, before most current galactic powers. These installations contained technology beyond comprehension, but they were locked. They required dark matter signatures to access, signatures that only Primus Drakes could provide. That's why they were hunted, Arya realized. The Draconid didn't just want to eliminate competition. They wanted to prevent anyone from accessing these installations. If they couldn't open them, they'd make sure nobody else could either. What's in these installations? Riley asked. Ember shared another memory, this one fragmented and uncertain. Knowledge, power, the ability to reshape worlds, to travel between galaxies, to manipulate space and time itself. The ancient civilization had created wonders, then disappeared, leaving their achievements locked away. The Primus Drakes had guarded these locks, ensuring the technology wasn't misused. The Genesis archives, Arya read from the data flowing around them. That's what the ancients called their repositories, and Ember is a key to accessing them. No wonder the Draconid want to find every last dragon, Riley said grimly. As long as even one Primus Drake exists, someone could unlock this technology. Arya turned to Ember. Do you know where these archives are? The dragon's scales flickered uncertainly. Some locations, yes. Others lost to time. But there was something else, something Ember seemed hesitant to share. The dragon finally pressed its snout to Arya's hand again, and she saw the final piece of the puzzle. Ember wasn't just any Primus Drake. The genetic memories went back further in this bloodline, stronger and clearer. Ember was descended from the royal family, the primary keepers of the ancient knowledge. That's why the Draconid had specifically targeted Ember's eggs. They weren't just trying to eliminate the species. They were trying to eliminate the one bloodline that knew the most. You're the last of the royal line, Arya whispered. That's why you were hidden separately from the others. Ember's scales turned deep purple again, confirming the grief of being alone. But then they shifted to a determined red. The dragon moved to another section of the archive and activated it. A star map appeared, showing dozens of locations scattered across the galaxy. What are those? Riley asked. Ember's response came through memory. Other survivors. Not many, perhaps 7 or 8 adult dragons hidden in various locations. They had gone deep into hiding, suppressing their natural luminescence, living in isolation. Ember could sense them, the royal bloodline granting awareness of other Primus Drakes across vast distances. They're alive, Arya said, hope rising in her chest. Your people survived, they're hiding, but they're alive. The question was whether to find them or leave them hidden. Revealing their location could save the species but might also doom them. The Draconid were still hunting, still determined to finish their genocide. Riley studied the map. If we could unite them, bring the Primus Drakes back together, would they be strong enough to stand against the Draconid? Ember's response was complex. Alone, no. But with allies, perhaps. The dragons had never been warriors, but they were not defenseless. More importantly, they held knowledge that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. We need to tell humanity, Arya said. About the Primus Drakes, the Genesis archives, all of it. If humans knew what the Draconid did, if they understood what was at stake, they might help. That's a big if, Riley cautioned. Humans and Draconid have a trade agreement. Breaking that to protect an unknown species could have serious consequences. Then we make the consequences worth it, Arya replied, her scientific mind already working on the problem. We prove that helping the Primus Drakes benefits humanity. We show them what the Genesis archives contain. We make them understand that this isn't just about saving dragons. It's about accessing knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. Ember's scales shifted to green, the color of hope. The dragon approached both women and pressed its head against each of them in turn. The message was clear. Trust. The Primus Drakes would trust humanity, but only if humanity proved worthy of that trust. We'll need evidence, Riley said practically. Documentation. Proof that the Draconid committed genocide and proof that the Genesis archives exist. The archive here has everything, Arya replied, already downloading data to portable storage. Historical records, genetic databases, even testimony from dragon witnesses. It's all preserved. As they worked, Ember stood watch, scales glowing softly in the crystalline chamber. The small dragon had grown significantly over the past weeks, now the size of a human. But compared to the images in the archive, showing adult Primus Drakes as large as spacecraft, Ember was still very much a child. A child who had just become the most important being in the galaxy, carrying the hopes of an extinct species and the keys to technology that could reshape civilization. The Draconid warships found them 2 days after they left the archive planet. 6 vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, blocking every escape route. Their targeting systems locked onto the small supply ship immediately. How did they track us? Riley demanded, her hands flying across the controls. We were careful. We covered our trail. They probably tracked Ember, Arya said, checking her scanners. The readings confirmed her worst fear. The Primus Drakes emit a unique energy signature when they use their abilities. Ember has been interfacing with technology constantly. The Draconid must have detection satellites scattered throughout this region. Ember's scales flashed bright red, and the dragon moved to the cockpit, pressing against the view screen as if it could see the enemy ships clearly. The creature made a series of rapid, urgent sounds. Incoming transmission, Riley announced. The lead Draconid commander appeared on their screen, its expression holding cruel satisfaction. Human vessel, you are harboring illegal biological material. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. We're not giving up, Ember, Arya stated firmly. Then you choose death. The Draconid cut the transmission. Energy weapons charged across all 6 warships. The supply ship's minimal shields wouldn't last 10 seconds against that kind of firepower. Riley began evasive maneuvers, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Ember made a decision faster than either human could process. The dragon pressed both claws against the ship's control panel. Instead of sharing memories, Ember pushed energy outward. The ship's systems blazed to life in ways they were never designed to handle. Engines overcharged, shields strengthened beyond their rated capacity, and the navigation computer suddenly understood flight paths that shouldn't be possible. What is Ember doing? Riley asked as the control panel lit up with new options. Interfacing, Arya replied, watching in amazement. Primus Drakes can interact with technology directly. Ember is enhancing our systems with its own energy. The supply ship lurched forward at impossible acceleration, dodging the first volley of weapons fire. Riley found herself piloting with capabilities she had never trained for, the ship responding to her thoughts as much as her commands. They weaved between the Draconid vessels, moving with an agility that their bulky supply ship shouldn't possess. This won't last, Riley said, even as she marveled at their enhanced performance. We're faster, but they're still stronger, and Ember can't maintain this forever. Arya was already thinking ahead. The Draconid ships are built for power, not precision. They're expecting us to run. What if we don't? You want to fight 6 warships in a supply vessel? No, I want to steal one of their warships. Arya pulled up tactical data. The smaller scout ship on the left is faster than the others. If we could board it, take control, we'd have a real chance of escape. Riley stared at her. That's insane. Do you have a better idea? Another volley of weapons fire streaked past their hull, close enough to scorch their shields. Ember's glow brightened with effort, pushing more energy into their defensive systems. The dragon was tiring, scales flickering between colors erratically. Fine, Riley said. But if we die, I'm blaming you. She threw the supply ship into a diving roll that brought them alongside the Draconid scout ship. Both vessels were traveling at tremendous speed, making any boarding attempt suicidal. But Ember had other ideas. The dragon moved to the airlock, scales shifting to a focused blue. Ember wants to create a bridge. Arya translated as the memories flowed to her. The Primus Drakes can manipulate matter at a molecular level when they need to. Ember can temporarily fuse our hull to theirs. That's impossible, Riley said. But she had already seen Ember do impossible things. Okay, get us close. Really close. Riley brought their ship within meters of the scout vessel, matching its speed perfectly despite the enemy's attempts to shake them off. The Draconid inside were shouting commands, trying to target a ship that was practically touching them. Their weapons couldn't aim at such close range. Ember pressed against the airlock and its scales began to glow brighter than ever before. Arya felt the temperature in the ship rise dramatically. Then, with a sound like crystals singing, a bridge of solidified energy formed between the two vessels. It looked like frozen starlight connecting their airlock to the scout ship's emergency hatch. Go, 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 Riley shouted. Arya grabbed her equipment pack and ran across the bridge, feeling it flex beneath her feet but hold firm. Riley was right behind her. The emergency hatch resisted for a moment before Ember's energy overwhelmed its locks. They burst into the Draconid scout ship, finding 3 crew members completely unprepared for boarders. What followed was brief and chaotic. Riley had military training and she used it efficiently. The Draconid were larger and stronger, but they were in a confined space where size became a disadvantage. Within minutes, all 3 enemy crew members were unconscious, secured with their own restraint cables. Ember, bring yourself over, Arya called through her radio. The dragon launched itself across the energy bridge, wings spread. As soon as Ember landed in the scout ship, the bridge dissolved, and their old supply vessel began to drift away, its systems failing without Ember's enhancement. Can you fly this thing? Arya asked Riley, looking at the alien controls. Not a chance, Riley admitted. The interface is completely different. Ember solved that problem by pressing against the control panel again. The Draconid systems flickered, then rearranged themselves into something more comprehensible. Human language replaced alien glyphs. The tactical display reformed into familiar patterns. Ember was adapting the ship to its new pilots. That's terrifying and amazing at the same time, Riley said, taking the pilot's seat. Okay, let's see what this thing can do. The scout ship was fast, much faster than their supply vessel had been. Riley pushed the engines hard, accelerating away from the remaining 5 Draconid warships. They gave chase immediately, but the scout ship had been designed for speed and reconnaissance. They're launching missiles, Arya warned, watching the tactical display. Ember, can you do that shield thing again? The dragon's response was to flood the ship's defensive systems with energy. Shields blazed to life at triple their normal strength. The missiles detonated against them, causing the ship to shake, but not breaching their protection. For 3 hours they ran. The Draconid pursued relentlessly, firing constantly, calling for reinforcements. Riley used every trick she knew, diving through asteroid fields, skimming dangerously close to stellar radiation zones, and exploiting the scout ship's superior maneuverability. Ember helped continuously, predicting pursuit patterns through some combination of calculation and instinct. The dragon would touch the controls and suddenly Riley would know exactly where to turn, when to accelerate, how to avoid the enemy's firing solutions. Jump coordinates ready, Arya announced. But it's going to be random. I can't plot a proper course while we're being shot at. Random is better than dead, Riley replied. Ember, are you ready for this? The dragon's scales shifted to determined red. Ember pressed against the faster-than-light drive, and Arya felt the distinctive pressure of space folding around them. But something was different. Ember wasn't just helping the drive function. The dragon was enhancing it, accessing some deeper understanding of how space worked. They jumped, and the universe twisted. When reality reasserted itself, they were far beyond any charted system. The stars were unfamiliar, their positions matching no human database. They had traveled further in one jump than should be possible, crossing distances that would normally take weeks. Where are we? Riley asked, scanning their surroundings. No idea, Arya admitted. But the Draconid aren't here. We lost them. Ember's glow faded to a dim flicker. The dragon collapsed onto the deck, exhausted from hours of maintaining enhanced systems and executing an impossible jump. Both women rushed to the dragon's side. You did amazing, Arya said softly, checking Ember's vital signs. But you need to rest. We all need to rest, Riley added, setting their new ship to drift in the empty space between stars. And then we need to figure out where we are and where we're going. Ember managed one last memory transfer before falling into deep sleep. Arya saw the image clearly. A sanctuary hidden deep in another nebula. The place where the last adult Primus Drakes were hiding. The coordinates burned into her mind. Ember wants us to find the others, Arya told Riley. The surviving dragons. If we can reach them, we might have a chance at more than just running. Then that's where we go, Riley said, gently covering Ember with a thermal blanket. But first, this dragon needs sleep. And honestly, so do I. You have the watch? I'll wake you in 6 hours, Arya promised. As Riley settled into an empty crew bunk, Arya sat beside Ember, one hand resting on the dragon's slowly breathing form. They had escaped the Draconid for now, but the enemy wouldn't stop hunting. The entire sovereignty would be searching for them, determined to eliminate the last royal Primus Drake. But they had also gained something valuable. A Draconid scout ship with military-grade systems, detailed intelligence data in its computers, and proof that 2 human women and a baby dragon could face impossible odds and survive. Arya pulled up the coordinates Ember had shared, plotting a course to the hidden sanctuary. It would take a week of travel, assuming they didn't encounter more Draconid patrols. A week to prepare, to plan, and to hope that the adult dragons would accept human allies. Because the alternative was extinction, not just for the Primus Drakes, but potentially for any species that dared to stand against the Draconid sovereignty's vision of galactic order. The nebula looked like frozen flames, vast clouds of red and gold gas swirling in patterns that seemed almost alive. Arya guided their stolen scout ship deeper into the phenomenon, following coordinates that Ember insisted were correct, despite showing no signs of habitation on any scanner. "There's nothing here," Riley said, studying the empty readings. "Are you sure Ember didn't make a mistake?" "Primus Drakes don't make mistakes about their own kind," Arya replied. "The sanctuary is here. It's just hidden." Ember stood at the view screen, scales bright with anticipation. The dragon had recovered from the exhausting escape, and had grown even larger during the week of travel. Now standing taller than most humans, Ember had to fold its wings carefully to fit in the scout ship's cramped interior. The dragon's presence filled the small vessel, both physically and in ways that were harder to define. "Wait," Riley said, pointing at a subtle fluctuation in the sensor data. "There. That energy signature shouldn't exist in a natural nebula. Something's generating an interference field." A shield, Arya realized. "They're hiding behind artificial electromagnetic noise." Ember touched the control panel and the ship's systems adapted again. The sensor display changed, filtering out the interference, and suddenly a planet appeared. It was small, barely larger than Earth's moon, but it was covered in structures. Not cities, but something more organic. Crystalline forests that stretched across entire continents. Buildings that grew like massive geodes from the ground. "That's beautiful," Riley whispered. As they approached, 7 shapes lifted from the planet's surface. They were enormous, each one easily the size of a human spacecraft. Adult Primus Drakes, their crystalline bodies refracting the nebula's light into rainbows. Their wings stretched wide enough to cast shadows over entire valleys. Compared to them, Ember was tiny, barely more than a hatchling. The lead dragon positioned itself between the planet and their ship. Its scales were deep amber, ancient, and scarred. When it spoke, the sound came through their communication system as harmonics that had been translated into something humans could understand. "Turn back, small ship. This place is not for you. We come in peace," Arya transmitted. "We bring one of your own. A survivor from the Draconid attack. Impossible. All the young ones perished. We sensed their deaths across the stars." Ember pressed against the view screen and released a powerful harmonic burst. It was pure communication, dragon to dragon, carrying memories and emotions that no translation could capture. The 7 adults reacted immediately, their scales flashing through rapid color changes. Shock, disbelief, and then overwhelming joy. "A royal hatchling," the Amber Elder breathed. "The bloodline survives. This is beyond hope." "Ember needs help," Arya continued. "And so do we. The Draconid are still hunting. They won't stop until every Primus Drake is dead. Then land, humans. If you have protected our child, you are welcome here." The planet's surface was unlike anything in human experience. The ground itself seemed to pulse with energy, and the crystalline structures resonated with sounds that existed at the edge of hearing. Ember rushed from the ship the moment the airlock opened, calling out to the waiting adults. What followed was a reunion that transcended species barriers. The 7 dragons surrounded Ember, touching the youngster with wings and snouts, sharing memories so rapidly that the air shimmered with transferred energy. Arya and Riley stood aside, witnessing a moment of pure emotion as the last survivors of an ancient race confirmed they were no longer alone. Eventually, the Amber Elder approached the 2 women. Up close, the dragon was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Each scale was the size of Arya's hand, and the creature's eyes held wisdom accumulated over centuries. "I am called Beacon," the dragon said. "I speak for the Hidden Ones. Tell me how you came to protect our child." Arya and Riley explained everything. Finding the destroyed eggs, hiding Ember from the Draconid, discovering the archive planet, and their desperate escape. Beacon listened without interruption, its expression unreadable. "You risked much for one who was not your own kind," Beacon said finally. "This is rare among the younger species. Most think only of themselves." "Ember trusted us," Riley replied simply. "We couldn't betray that trust." Another dragon moved forward, this one with scales of deep purple. "I am Whisper. I must know, humans, why did you help? What do you gain from protecting a Primus Drake?" It was the question Arya had been expecting, the one she had asked herself many times. At first, compassion. Ember was injured and alone. But later, we learned the truth about what the Draconid did, about the genocide. No species deserves extinction, especially not through deliberate murder. "Beautiful words," a third dragon said, its tone skeptical. But the Draconid also used beautiful words to justify their actions. They claim they made the galaxy safer by eliminating us. "They're wrong," Arya stated firmly, "and we can prove it." "Beacon," Ember showed us the Genesis archives. "We know what the Primus Drakes protected. That knowledge shouldn't be lost." Beacon's scales shifted to a cautious orange. "The archives are dangerous, human. The ancient technology within could reshape civilizations or destroy them. We chose to guard those secrets rather than use them ourselves." "But you could use them now," Riley interjected, "to defend yourselves, to prove to the galaxy that the Draconid committed genocide, to reclaim your place as peacekeepers." "We are 7 adults and 1 hatchling," Whisper said sadly. "We cannot reclaim anything. We can only hide and hope the Draconid never find us." "What if you had allies?" Arya asked. "Humanity doesn't have a history with the ancient galactic conflicts. We're new, still finding our place. But we're not powerless. If humans knew the truth, if they understood what the Primus Drakes represent, some would help." "Some," Beacon emphasized. "Not all. Not even most. Humans and Draconid have trade agreements, diplomatic relations. Why would your people risk that for us?" "Because of what you can offer in return," Arya said, and here came the gamble. "Access to the Genesis archives. Shared knowledge. The Primus Drakes and humanity working together to unlock the ancient technology. Not for weapons, but for advancement. Medicine, energy, space travel, everything the archives contain." The dragons were silent, communicating among themselves through harmonics too complex for human ears. Ember joined the discussion, sharing memories of Arya and Riley's kindness, their sacrifice, their determination to protect despite the danger. Finally, Beacon spoke. "You propose an alliance, but humanity is young, impulsive. How do we know your species won't become what the Draconid are? Aggressive, expansionist, dangerous." "You don't," Riley admitted. "But you know these 2 humans. You know what we did for Ember. That has to count for something." Another dragon, its scales a shifting silver, moved forward. "I am Echo. I have studied the younger species for centuries. Humans are unique in one way: their capacity for rapid change. They can be violent or peaceful, selfish or altruistic, all within a single generation. This makes them unpredictable. But also," Echo continued, "it makes them capable of growth." The Draconid were set in their ways, unchanging, convinced of their superiority. Humans still question themselves, still doubt, still learn. This could be strength rather than weakness. Beacon considered this. If we emerge from hiding, the Draconid will learn of it. They will bring their full might against us. Your humanity would need to stand with us against a major galactic power. Are they willing to do that? I don't know, Arya answered honestly. But I can try to convince them. Give me access to one of the Genesis archives. Let me bring proof to human leadership. Show them what's possible if we work together. And if they refuse, if they choose their trade agreements over alliance with us, then at least you'll know, Riley said. You'll know that we tried. That not all humans are like the Draconid. Ember made a sound, young and hopeful, pressing against Beacon's side. The elder dragon looked down at the hatchling with something like affection. You love this child, Beacon said to Arya and Riley. I can sense it, not as possessions or curiosities, but as parents love offspring. Both women nodded. It was true. Over the weeks of protecting Ember, teaching the dragon, learning from it in return, they had formed a bond deeper than any scientific interest or moral obligation. Very well, Beacon decided. We will take this risk, but not blindly. One of us will accompany you to meet with human leadership. We will demonstrate our abilities, share limited knowledge, and judge whether an alliance is possible. I will go, Ember declared, the dragon's voice still young but determined. No, Beacon said gently. You are too valuable, too young. If the humans betray us, you must survive. Then I will go, Echo offered. I am curious about humans, and I am old enough that my loss would not cripple our people. It's settled then, Beacon announced. Echo will travel with you to human space. You will present your case to your leaders. If they accept alliance, we will emerge from hiding. If they refuse, Echo will return and we will continue to hide. What about the Genesis archives? Arya asked. Beacon shared a memory, coordinates burning into Arya's mind. There is an archive 3 days from here. Echo will guide you to it and help you access the outer levels. But the deep knowledge, the truly dangerous information that remains locked until true alliance is proven. Fair enough, Riley said. When do we leave? Immediately, Echo replied, moving toward their scout ship. The silver dragon was smaller than the others, perhaps only 3 times the size of their vessel. But first, take supplies. You will need them. The other dragons brought containers filled with crystalline formations. These are energy reserves, Whisper explained. They will allow Echo to maintain full strength during your journey. They will also serve as proof of our nature. Your human scientists will find them fascinating. As they prepared to depart, Ember pressed against both women one final time, sharing a complex emotion that mixed gratitude, love, and hope. The young dragon had found family in these humans, and now that family was expanding to include an entire species. We'll come back, Arya promised. Whether the alliance works or not, we'll come back for you. I know, Ember replied through memory, and Arya saw herself and Riley through the dragon's eyes. Protectors, friends, and something more. The first proof that different species could care for each other without conquest or exploitation. As their ship lifted from the sanctuary planet, Echo settled in the cargo bay, scales glowing softly. The ancient dragon watched the humans with curiosity and caution in equal measure. Your species is very young, Echo observed. So quick to promise, so eager to help. I hope this is wisdom rather than naivety. So do we, Riley admitted. So do we. The Draconid Sovereignty fleet arrived at the Genesis Archive location exactly when Echo predicted they would. 30 warships dropped from faster-than-light travel in perfect military formation, surrounding the ancient installation that hung in space like a massive crystalline flower. They tracked us, Riley said grimly from the pilot's seat. Again. No, Echo corrected, the silver dragon's harmonics translating through the ship's systems. They tracked me. My people's energy signatures are distinct. The Draconid have been monitoring for any sign of Primus Drake activity for centuries. When I began interfacing with the archive, they detected it. Arya checked their tactical display. More contacts were appearing. Human ships, responding to the distress call she had sent 2 days ago. 12 vessels, a mixture of military and civilian, all flying toward the archive. Not nearly enough to match the Draconid fleet, but their presence meant humanity had made a choice. The Draconid commander is hailing us, Riley announced. The same enemy face that had pursued them before appeared on their screen. Humans, you have made a grave error. You harbor a Primus Drake and attempt to access forbidden technology. The sovereignty demands you surrender both immediately. This technology isn't yours to forbid, Arya replied. The Genesis archives belong to no one. The Primus Drakes are their guardians, not your prisoners. The Primus Drakes are extinct, the Draconid commander stated. We ensured this for the safety of all species. The creature you protect is an abomination that should have died with the rest. Echo moved to where the view screen could capture the dragon's image. I am Echo of the Primus Drakes. We are not extinct. We are not abominations, and we will no longer hide from those who would commit genocide. The Draconid's expression twisted with rage. Then you will die. All of you. The transmission ended. 30 warships began moving into attack positions. Human fleet is arriving, Riley reported. The friendly contacts spread out in a defensive formation around the archive. Against the Draconid force, it looked pathetically small. Admiral Chen's face appeared on their communication channel. Dr. Blake, Captain Hayes, I hope you know what you're doing. The Draconid are demanding we stand down and turn you over. They're threatening to break our trade agreements if we interfere. Admiral, did you review the data we sent? Arya asked. The historical records? The proof of genocide? I did. My analyst confirmed it's authentic. The Draconid systematically eliminated an entire species and lied about it to the galaxy. Chen's expression hardened. That doesn't sit well with me or with Earth Command. But starting a war over it is another matter. This isn't about starting a war, Arya explained. It's about preventing one. The Draconid will never stop hunting the Primus Drakes. If we don't stand with them now, we're just waiting until the sovereignty decides to eliminate the next species that inconveniences them, which might be us. Echo added. Admiral, the archives contain knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. Medical technology, energy systems, methods of space travel beyond your current understanding. But more than that, they contain the history of 100 species, including yours. What do you mean, including ours? Chen asked sharply. Access the archive and see for yourself, Echo replied. On the tactical display, the Draconid fleet was nearly in firing range. The human ships moved to intercept, their weapons charging. It was going to be a massacre, and everyone knew it. Then space twisted. 7 more shapes appeared, dropping from faster-than-light travel with precision that made human navigation look crude. Adult Primus Drakes, each one as large as a battleship, their crystalline bodies blazing with power. Beacon led them, the amber elder scales bright with determination. We could not let Echo face this alone. Beacon's harmonics filled every communication channel. If humanity stands with us, we stand with humanity. The Draconid commander opened a broad transmission. All vessels, this is your final warning. The Primus Drakes are enemies of galactic peace. Anyone who aids them will be considered hostile to the sovereignty. Funny thing about peace, Admiral Chen replied. It requires justice. You can't murder an entire species and call it peacekeeping. You choose war then, the Draconid said. No, Beacon interrupted. We choose to defend ourselves. There is a difference. The first shots came from the Draconid fleet. Energy weapons designed specifically to penetrate crystalline structures, fired in coordinated volleys. The Primus Drakes moved with impossible grace for beings their size, wings spreading to create shields of solidified light that absorbed the attacks. Then the dragons counterattacked. And the Draconid learned why the Primus Drakes had once been peacekeepers rather than warriors. The dragons didn't fire weapons. They manipulated space itself. Ships found their weapons disabled as the dragons interfaced with their systems remotely. Shield generators overloaded from feedback that seemed to come from nowhere. Navigation systems reported false readings that sent vessels tumbling out of formation. They're not trying to destroy them, Riley realized. They're trying to disable them. The Primus Drakes don't want to kill, Echo explained. Even after genocide, even now they seek to preserve life. It is their nature. But the Draconid showed no such restraint. They focused fire on Whisper, the purple dragon, overwhelming its defenses. The dragon fell back, scales cracking, light dimming. Enough, Admiral Chen commanded. The human fleet opened fire, not with killing force, but with precision strikes aimed at weapon systems. Riley had shared human combat tactics with the Admiral, strategies the Draconid had never encountered. The human ships were smaller, weaker, but they used guerrilla methods. Hit and run, asymmetric warfare, confusion over confrontation. Arya saw her chance. While the battle raged, she guided their scout ship directly toward the Genesis archive. Echo pressed against the ship's systems, and suddenly they were moving faster than should be possible, dodging weapons fire, slipping through the chaos. What are you doing? Riley demanded. Opening the archive, Arya said. Echo said it contains human history. If that's true, if there's proof of our connection to the ancients, it changes everything. They reached the archive structure, and Echo touched their ship to it. The dragon's energy flowed outward, interfacing with technology that had been dormant for millions of years. The archive began to wake, its systems powering up, drawing energy from the fabric of space itself. Data flooded their computers. Historical records, genetic databases, technological blueprints. And there, buried in the deepest files, was information about humanity. The ancient civilization that built the archives had been explorers, seeding life throughout the galaxy. They had left genetic markers in certain species, markers that would activate under the right conditions. Humanity carried those markers. We're inheritors, Arya breathed, reading the data. The ancient builders wanted their knowledge to continue. They encoded the potential for it in dozens of species, including humans. We weren't just random evolution. We were designed to eventually understand this technology. Echo confirmed it. The Primus Drakes have known this for generations. We recognized the markers in early human genetic samples. That's why we trusted you with Ember. The ancient ones chose your species, among others, to carry their legacy forward. Broadcast this, Arya told Riley. Send it to every ship out there. Human, Draconid, everyone. The data transmission went out on all frequencies. Every vessel received the proof simultaneously. Humanity wasn't just another young species stumbling through space. They were one of several inheritor races, genetically marked to access and understand the archives. The Draconid commander's expression changed from rage to fear. You cannot be allowed to access that technology. Your species is too young, too unstable. Says the species that committed genocide, Admiral Chen retorted. I think we'll take our chances with humanity's development. More ships were arriving now. Other human vessels responding to the public broadcast. Word was spreading across human space faster than anyone expected. Humanity had just learned they were part of something ancient, something important. The political implications would take years to sort out, but in this moment the choice was simple. Stand with the Primus Drakes and claim their inheritance, or bow to Draconid demands and remain diminished. The Draconid fleet regrouped, preparing for an all-out assault. But then something unexpected happened. 3 Draconid ships broke formation, powering down their weapons. This is Captain North of the sovereignty vessel Talon's Edge, a transmission came. I did not join the fleet to complete a genocide. If the Primus Drakes live, if the ancient records prove our ancestors lied, then I will not fire on them. 2 more ships followed suit, then 4 more. The Draconid military was disciplined, but even discipline had limits when confronted with proof of historical atrocity. The commander saw the mutiny spreading and made a calculation. All vessels withdraw. We will report this incident to the Sovereignty Council. This matter is not over. The Draconid fleet retreated, though not all ships left. 7 vessels remained, their captains requesting asylum and demanding to speak with their crews about what they had just learned. As the immediate danger passed, Beacon approached the archive, scales glowing warmly. You have changed the galaxy today, humans. For better or worse remains to be seen. The archive is fully accessible now, Echo reported. All outer levels respond to human genetic markers. The deeper levels, the truly advanced technology, will require time and study to unlock. But the foundation is there. Admiral Chen addressed all ships. This is going to get complicated. The Draconid won't let this go. We've just made a powerful enemy. But we've also made powerful friends, Arya replied, watching as the Primus Drakes gathered around the archive. And we've gained access to knowledge that could change everything about how we understand the universe. Riley brought their ship around to dock at the archive, station that was forming as the ancient structure reconfigured itself. So what now? Now we work, Arya said. We study, we learn, we build an alliance that can stand against anyone who thinks genocide is acceptable policy. Ember's voice suddenly filled their communication system, the young dragon transmitting from the sanctuary planet light years away. You did it, I felt it. The archives responded to human presence. We are no longer alone. No, Echo agreed. None of us are alone anymore. In the days that followed, more human ships arrived, bringing scientists, diplomats, and volunteers. The Primus Drakes emerged fully from hiding, no longer needing to suppress their nature. Together, humans and dragons began the careful work of accessing the Genesis archives, unlocking technologies that had been sealed for millions of years. The Draconid sovereignty issued formal protests, but their power to act was limited. Several of their own ships had defected, their crews refusing to participate in covering up genocide. Internal debates raged within the sovereignty about their historical actions and current policies. Other species watched with interest. Some approached cautiously, curious about the archives and humanity's new role. Others remained wary, uncertain whether humans could be trusted with ancient power. But in the archive station, as Arya worked alongside Echo to decode another layer of ancient technology, she felt hope, not blind optimism, but genuine hope based on what they had accomplished. 2 human women had found a forsaken baby dragon. That simple act of compassion had revealed secrets that changed galactic politics, exposed genocide, and forged an alliance between species. It proved that doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous, even when it contradicted orders and common sense, could reshape reality itself. Riley joined her at the console, and together they looked out at the stars visible through the archive's transparent sections. Somewhere out there, Ember was growing, learning, preparing for a future where Primus Drakes could fly freely without fear. "Think we made the right choice?" Riley asked. "I think we made the only choice we could live with," Arya replied. "Everything else we'll figure out as we go." Echo's harmonics resonated with something like laughter. "That is the most human statement I have ever heard. And perhaps that is exactly what the Ancient Ones hoped for when they marked your species. Not certainty, but the courage to act despite uncertainty." As the first human dragon research teams began their work in the archives, as alliance agreements were drafted and former enemies were forced to reconsider their positions, the galaxy began to change. Not overnight, not easily, but genuinely. And it had all started because 2 women had looked at a forsaken baby dragon and decided that compassion mattered more than protocol, that life mattered more than politics, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could have the largest consequences. Ember's secret had changed everything. But really, it was humanity's response to that secret, their choice to help rather than exploit, to protect rather than possess, that made all the difference. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges and dangers. But for the first time in 500 years, the Primus Drakes faced that future with hope. And humanity faced it knowing they were part of something larger than themselves, inheritors of ancient wisdom, and allies to beings who had once maintained peace across the stars. Together, they would write the next chapter of galactic history. And this time, it would be a chapter about cooperation, not conquest, about preserving life, not destroying it, about the power of unlikely friendships between 2 women and a dragon to reshape civilization itself.